Hello and welcome to Module 9. So today we are going to talk about creating balanced meals. This is a question that I hear a lot about for people that are looking to go plant-based, eating more plant-based, wondering, is my meal balanced? Am I putting in all the right things? Am I doing the right thing? What should I be eating? What should I be pairing to make sure that my food is balanced? So we're going to talk about that today. Let me just share my screen with you here to my little slideshow. All right, here we go. I love this picture. That's such a nice balanced meal. Hopefully maybe even this will just give you inspiration just from seeing those beautiful colors and all that variety. And so let's scroll down here. So when you are thinking about how to build a balanced plant-based meal, the thing is that most people ask about, and which makes sense, is you want to think about macronutrients. So that's proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, which at this point, we've been learning about this in the program. You know what they are, and you want to consider that in your meal, and most meals, you want generally a source of protein, source of carbohydrates, complex carbohydrates, and fats. So that's kind of what we're looking for, a little bit of each in each meal. You don't need to necessarily measure things out. You don't need to have the exact amount of protein, exact amount of carbohydrates. This is something that you'll know, and you'll learn how much you require of each as you go along and you're in tune to what you're eating and your general health requirements, because everybody does require different amounts. But we just want to generally see some of each of those in each meal. It might not be every meal, but most meals. And don't overthink it. Again, you're going to be getting a little bit of those in everything if you're eating a wide variety of plants. And then micronutrients as well as our vitamins and minerals. And of course, if you're eating a wide variety of plant-based foods as well, you're going to be getting a wide variety of vitamins and minerals. Generally, people that eat plant-based diets are eating very micronutrient-rich diets as it is, because you're just eating so many plants and products and foods that have vitamins and minerals. So it's not something you really need to think about, but it's something that if you were really new to this, like if this is your first time talking about plant-based, it was something that I would mention and say, like, we're looking to get nutrient-dense foods in our diet. How do you do that? Eat more plants. So also you want to consider flavor, because a big part of eating and food and enjoying food is we want to have flavorful food. So you want to think of the different flavors that actually are kind of triggered or basically that will be activated in your taste buds. So we have receptors on our taste buds, on our tongue. So we want to think about foods that are spicy, sweet, sour, salty, and bitter, and trying to get a wide variety of those. Sometimes you'll be able to get those in every single, or not every, in one dish, you'll have all these varieties of flavors, and it just makes for such a flavorful and robust dish. Also more exciting, because we don't want to be bored with our food, so we really want to incorporate different flavors, and whether again, spicy, sweet, sour, salty, bitter. And you can do that with, I can even just look right here. So say we have our bitter greens, we could get a bit of sweetness from, I think that's a sweet potato or a squash down there. There's not much, I would even imagine getting some sourness by squeezing over maybe a lemon or some vinegar. Salty, you could even get in there, obviously salty isn't necessarily one, but it's something you could, yeah, sorry, it is one. Salty, you could get some salt in there just by sprinkling over some seaweed or a little bit of salt. And spicy, if you wanted to do that, you could, I believe those chickpeas look like they've got some spice on there. So maybe they have a little bit of chili spice. So just thinking about different flavors and how you can add them into what you're eating. Also, texture is an important thing too. One area that I always laugh was people kind of assume that all plant-based foods might just be mushy things like stews. So we don't want to have just mushy food. We want crunchy, chewy, crispy, mushy as well, smooth, grainy, fluffy, flaky. A good way to add crunch in and different texture into foods is using something like a kale, which has a little bit of give. Or up here you can see there's pumpkin seeds. Those would add a little crunch. Even these roasted chickpeas, another way to get a little bit of crunch. So adding in textures is going to make your food more exciting, just more interesting. So thinking about texture as well. So color, this is something that of course comes up generally when you hear people talking about nutritious foods. Think about color. Do you have some green in there? Yellow, orange, red, purple, blue, black, white, brown. Your goal is to taste the rainbow. So eating a wide variety of plant-based foods, not a problem. You're going to taste the rainbow. You're going to be eating lots of different colors. And that way you're also going to help contribute to that micronutrients, those vitamins and minerals. You're going to contribute to that so much more by eating a wide variety of colors. So cooking methods as well are going to affect, say, things like the texture. So you can alter the texture of foods by cooking. So whether a saute, which would be a more quick cooking, you're going to keep things crunchier and crispier. Steaming as well might allow, say if you're steaming broccoli as opposed to boiling it, broccoli is going to have a little more crunch if you steam it rather than boil it. Baking can often, add a softness inside of, say, a sweet potato, but a little crunchiness on the outside. Braised would be when we're using a liquid, so that would soften and really give a nice smooth texture to a food. Poached as well as using a liquid. Fried foods, which we don't talk about a lot here because I don't generally fry food. Sometimes I may have fried food when I'm out, but not a lot of fried foods happening at home. But just as an example, that is a cooking method. Fermented foods are great. That is actually a cooking method. It's not necessarily cooked, but utilizing nature to allow the food to be more edible and palatable. Raw foods as well, of course not cooked, but raw is essentially a method that you could use to incorporate foods, as well as caramelized, which adds a super nice sweetness to any foods. If you're caramelizing things like, say, onions or mushrooms, very tasty. So I'm just going to scroll down and we're going to look through a few examples of meals and talk about the components that are in there, more so, say, from a macronutrient perspective, which I know is the thing that most of you are concerned about, because I'm not worried about you hitting the micronutrients if you're eating a lot of plants. Flavor, you're going to get a lot if you're trying these recipes. Texture, you're going to be doing a lot of different things with these recipes. Color, again, back to the variety of foods. You're getting a lot of color, and you're going to try a lot of cooking methods. But I know for most people, it's the macronutrients, the protein, carbs, and fats. People want to know, am I getting them in? So let's talk about this. So here is a great example. It's a tofu scramble. So of course we have our tofu, which we know is a great source of protein. So right there, we're getting in some protein. And then back here, we've got some really nice potatoes, which would have a little bit of oil on there. And if you're omitting oil, we're going to talk about fat in a second, how to add some more in. But we've got our potatoes there, which is nice complex carbohydrate. We're also seeing lots of other veggies in this dish, which will provide our complex carbohydrates, particularly our fiber. And then if you wanted to up this dish with a little bit more fat, something like adding a little bit of avocado, a little bit of cashew sour cream would be a great way to add in a healthy form of fat. Even you could sprinkle on some nuts and seeds if you wanted to do that. So this meal is a nice balanced meal. It's got a little bit of everything, lots of color, some nice spices, lots of texture, flavor. Love it. It's one of my favorites. This is a bowl you may have seen as well. So this is the raw taco bowl. I just love this one. It's so tasty. So in there, we've got our walnuts, which are a source of protein as well as healthy fat. So we've got our protein and fats in there, even some, I believe it's a tahini dressing I drizzle over that, which is also another form of healthy fat. We've got our good carbohydrates from all the veggies that are in there. So we've got proteins, carbohydrates, fats. Another way to really up the protein and complex carbohydrate for this dish would be to add some black beans or add any beans of your choice. But this is a really nice one. Lots of flavor, complexity, very tasty. You see with the cilantro on there, and the walnuts are seasoned, so it's super nice. It's a great dish, and you can kind of see we're getting a bit of everything. So that's kind of how I want you to think. Are you getting a little bit of everything? Honestly, you won't really need to think about this as you go along because it's going to become second nature. And then here's another one for you. This is the tofu feta. So delicious. Again, tofu are a great source of protein, but you also see that there are some white beans in there, so a source of protein and complex carbohydrates. And in this one, we do use some olive oil for the tofu, but you can also see sort of in the dark there are some olives. So olives are a really nice form of healthy fat. And then lots of good carbohydrates, though, honestly, with whether it's the beans and the fiber from that or the additional vegetables that are in there. So really nice, tasty, balanced meal. So these are just a few ideas to kind of get you thinking. And this is how I want you to think, like, do you get a little bit of each of these? Again, don't stress it. If you do a meal and it doesn't have everything perfectly, that's okay. You're not going to hit every meal bang on. I don't either. Sometimes I might just eat a plate of pasta and that's all I have. But generally, we want to think about this stuff as we are putting together meals. And this is a great one. I just love this. This is one of the breakfast options in the program, and it's a chocolate chia pudding. So chia seeds are a form of protein as well as healthy fat. And I encourage when you're making a chia pudding to add in things like bananas. So that's going to be a really nice, healthy, complex carbohydrate. But this one's cool too because I think it's a great example. You see here some probably almond butter or peanut butter, another form of healthy fat. I believe that's either chopped, well, I think that's probably almonds. Could be some Brazil nuts in there too. So another form of protein and fat. And even I believe there's some extra fruits on the top there. So we're getting in our healthy fats, healthy proteins, lots of complex carbohydrates and fiber. So we are looking really good with these meals. So this is kind of how I want you to be thinking as you're putting together your meals, which brings us to a great question. If your meals are balanced, do you need to actually supplement? And I would like to say here, this is an important disclaimer, that if you are a strict vegan, you eat zero animal products whatsoever, I do highly recommend supplementing with vitamin B12. Generally, I take a sublingual one, so it's a vitamin that goes under the tongue and it absorbs right into the bloodstream. I've never had issues with B12 in all of my time being plant-based, and I haven't eaten any animal products. But it's just something to be aware of. If you are a strict plant-based or strict vegan, no animal products, you want to get that B12 in your diet. Also, strict vegans or people who do not eat any seafood, you might want to choose to supplement with an algae-based omega-3. Generally, you can get it in a liquid or a capsule form. Also ensuring that if you are not eating any fish or any, just if you are a strict vegan, you can also do that by getting in your omega-3s by eating things like flax, walnuts, nuts and seeds that are high in omegas, but it doesn't hurt to supplement and to see how you're doing. I do take an algae supplement myself when I remember. I don't always take it, but I do often have that in my sort of supplement. Like basically all I take is B12, an algae supplement, and also for myself, because I live in Canada, I live in a northern climate, I don't see the sun, definitely not in the winter, unfortunately. And in the summer, even when I am out in the sun, I tend to be covered up because I burn easily. So vitamin D is a very common deficiency in northern climates. Most people actually need to supplement with it. And regarding all three of these things, I highly encourage you to speak with your primary healthcare practitioner about supplementation. I'm very tapped into this, and I think most people, regardless of if you're doing, plant-based or if you're vegan, people need to be a little bit more aware of this. There's a lot of common deficiencies that happen nowadays, especially from people that aren't eating enough plants. So these are something just to pay attention to. I personally advise people, my clients who I'm working with, to go to their doctor and ask for a full blood panel every few years just to see how things are going. Get them to check for a baseline so you know what's happening and what's going on. Check your B12 levels, check your vitamin D. You might want to check things like thyroid. There's so many different things, iron. Check those things out and see how you're doing, regardless of where you're at in your journey with health and wellness. It's always good to have a baseline, because if you have a baseline, then you know what you're working with us. Most of us are kind of going into this blindly and have no idea what's happening. So I tend to go for a blood panel every year, every 2 years, just to know for myself. And so far, everything's been totally fine. And if something wasn't going well, at least I'd have that knowledge and information. So I hope this little tutorial or webinar was helpful for you. I hope you have a little more clarity on how to balance your meals based on these awesome examples, which are making me hungry. And I will, of course, share this slideshow with you in our Facebook group, so you can have this as a reference and just for your own information, and you can look at it later. But of course, feel free to ask me any questions you have on upcoming webinars or in office hours. I look forward to talking with you and hope that you have a great rest of your day. And that is it for now. Bye. Nice chatting with you.